So if you've ever struggled with taking consistent action, right? If you have issues with willpower, motivation, discipline in your fitness journey or your weight loss journey, then this video is for you. I created this because 99% of coaches out there and the experts who are supposed to help you with staying consistent on your weight loss journey, they get their understanding of willpower motivation is completely wrong, right? They do not get it. So I want to share a completely different perspective about taking consistent action, which will actually help you truly stay consistent with whatever actions you want to take. Right. So, what I'm hoping is that by the end of this video, you should have changed or transformed some of your beliefs around taking consistent action, some of your beliefs around motivation and willpower specifically, right? About discipline. And that will be the very first steps that you take in the correct direction towards taking consistent action. So today I want to orient you in the right direction so that you can start taking consistent action and start moving in that direction. So today will be the very first step. So let's get right to it. So the first thing to realize here is that whenever we think we're struggling with willpower, motivation, or wanting to have discipline, etc., right? There is fundamentally, like if you zoom out and if you recognize the problem for what it truly is, right? The fundamental problem is that of our long-term wishes contradicting with our short-term wishes, or conflicting with our short-term wishes, right? So we have something that gives us short-term gratification, but that hurts our long-term prospects, right? So it is only in such areas does willpower motivation become a problem, right? Because we want to orient ourselves in the long term, and we don't want to give in to our short-term like other short-term gratification, right? If both are aligned in the same way, then there's no problem at all, because there is one action which gives us short-term gratification also and helps our long-term goals. For example, say talking to people, socializing is one example, right? Because in the short term it gives us gratification to talk to people, and in the long term it helps our mental health, right? So there's no conflict between short term and long term, and that is why there's no issue there of willpower, of motivation. The problem of willpower, motivation, discipline, etc., they come in precisely when there is that conflict between what we want in the short term versus what we want in the long term. And typically, since we are logical, rational beings compared to animals, we want to optimize for the long term, but the short term gratification is just so tempting, right? We're still animals at the end of the day, so that is so tempting, and we find that conflict hard to manage. So that is the essential problem that we are facing. And using willpower and motivation is one of the mechanisms that we are trying to use to solve for that and to pick the long term option wherever possible. So most of us, right, when we think of resolving this dilemma of long-term objectives versus short-term gratification, the default thing that we go back to, that we depend on, is our willpower or our motivation, right? We try to push ourselves to actually doing what we want to do. So this is what it typically looks like, right? So I've drawn a willpower versus time graph. So this is how our willpower uh, uh, is relative to time, right? As time passes, this is how our willpower is. So the expectation. So I'll kind of use blue to show our expectations, right? So our expectation is that typically at the beginning of the journey we have higher willpower, like higher than average, right? That is when we decide to start, because it gives us the energy and the motivation to start, right? So typically we start off high over here, and the expectation in the beginning is that it will stay high, or it will stay kind of constant, you know. This is the expectation, that maybe it will move a little bit, but it will more or less stay constant. If I'm feeling this level of willpower today, it will stay that way 1 month down the line, 2 months down the line, 3 months down the line. That is the expectation, and that is faulty because the reality is completely different. So we have done a lot of research on in cognitive psychology when it comes to motivation, willpower, uh, motivation, willpower specifically. And the thing about willpower is that willpower is a fluctuating resource. Willpower is very similar to emotions, right? That is a fundamental, that is a main consensus that cognitive psychologists and researchers have come to, is that willpower is very much like an emotion, in the sense that it fluctuates a lot and there are various factors that affect it. So you might know what makes you happy, what makes you sad, etc., but it is still impossible for you to stay happy all the time. Like it is impossible for you to have high levels of happiness for months on end. So willpower is very similar. It's a fluctuating resource and many factors affect it, but it's impossible for you to have high willpower all the time. So the reality of what your willpower looks like will be something like this, right? Maybe initially it still averages around that area, and then later it will drop. Maybe later it will go higher again. It drops, it goes down, the trend. So it keeps varying. Now, now here's the thing, right? If willpower, right? If willpower and motivation your primary, is the primary thing that pushes you to take action, or in other words, if your action is dependent on your willpower levels, right? Then you will expect that your action will follow the blue line because your expectation is that your willpower will be consistent. But the reality is that your actions will fluctuate, because just like your willpower fluctuates, your actions will fluctuate, right? So it's but obvious that you will stay inconsistent because willpower itself is an inconsistent resource, right? Willpower itself is not going to be consistent. So if your actions depend on willpower, then your actions will also be inconsistent. And that is why instead of using willpower, instead of depending on willpower or motivation, we need something different, right? Something more reliable that will help us take consistent action. So what I propose is that, or the right way to do it is that we forget about willpower, right? Let's not depend on willpower for taking action. Instead, we focus on something called, that's right, habits. Okay, we learn the art and science behind habit formation. Now, the good news about habits is that it is something that can be learned, right? Most people think that they should just inherently know how to form a habit. That is not true at all. I used to be terrible at like working out. I have paid for an entire year at the gym and only gone for 3 days, and then did the same thing again a few years later, where I went for 3 weeks this time, but I still quit. Right? Uh, I've been there. I've been terrible with habits, but once I kind of experimented with and I kind of read the theory behind habit formation, like what are the different things that you can do, especially from a research backed standpoint, right? There's a whole world of uh, techniques, strategies for habit formation backed by science, which can be learned. Right, so if you look in the right places and if you get the right resources, which I'll help you with, of course, they can be learned just like practicing and getting something right, like just like practicing the piano or just like learning how to ride a bike. It is a skill that can be developed, right? So forming habits is a better way to look at it. And why is that? It is because when you form habits, right, initially it's difficult, right? But here, of course, you can depend on your high willpower and your habit formation techniques. It might help. But once a habit gets formed, you're able to take consistent action. So this becomes an action graph. Actually, it's not because this graph is willpower versus time. So that way it's a bit inaccurate to say that your willpower moves like that, but this is the action graph, let's say, right? So initially you might struggle to take action, but once it becomes a habit, like once you cross a certain threshold, then you don't need motivation for it to stick, for that habit to stick, or for you to stay consistent. So in other words, you can say that if you formed a habit, then your willpower or motivation becomes irrelevant because you're able to take consistent action regardless of what your willpower or motivation is. So even if, or even when rather, because your willpower will dip, it will fall. So even when your willpower drops, even when your motivation is low, you will still take consistent action as long as the habit has been formed, right? And habits, usually each habit takes a one time effort, after which you can kind of ride on those benefits as long as you stay consistent, as long as you don't break it, right? So that is one huge massive advantage of habit formation, and it is a skill that can be learned. Like at a broad level, you can learn how do I form any new habit, right? There's a game of habit avoidance, there's a game of habit formation. Once you've learned both these games, then any habit can actually be formed. So which means that it will take you maybe a couple of weeks, or 3 weeks is what they say, like 3 weeks to kind of get going. After that, you stay completely consistent. So as long as your willpower can carry you for those 3 weeks, just those 3 weeks is all your willpower needs to last, right? Or you need just enough willpower to get started, right? Once you get started and you convert that willpower energy into a habit, then your habit will take care of consistent action no matter what your motivation is, or no matter what your willpower is. And that is the beauty of habit formation. So think about all the things that are ingrained habits for you, right? So you probably, like I did, and you also probably got scolded by parents for not taking a shower daily, for not brushing your teeth daily. These are habits that were formed probably by force very, very early on. But once those habits have stuck, and they have stuck for a long period of time, now it feels weird to not brush. Now it feels weird to not take a shower. And sure, you might say that, oh, I mean, there are certain times when I'm too busy to not take a shower, but it still feels weird, right? And that itself is powerful. It still feels icky. It still feels like, oh, like I need to do this, right? And for the most part, we do, like, hopefully, we do take a shower every single day. We do brush every single day. And it's not because we feel particularly motivated, right? I don't go around telling people that, yeah, I'm lacking the motivation to shower, right? Like, people look at me like I'm stupid, because the act of showering does not need a motivation. Like, we all understand that, because it's all become a habit for us. So that is the kind of uh, ingrained habit I want to make for you when it comes to healthy habits, or healthy eating, exercising, etc. It should feel weird if you don't do it, right? It feels weird. I've been exercising regularly for 5 years now, and there are times when I can't exercise, like when I had COVID, when I have traveled, and, like, actually when I travel also I do exercise. But when I've been traveling and the schedule has been tightly packed, when my son was in the hospital, so these are times when I could not exercise, and it feels damn weird, right? It feels weird, as if I haven't taken a shower, or as if I haven't brushed. And that is the kind of stickiness that you can give your actions if you master the art and science of habit formation, right? And once again, I'll clarify this again. Habit formation is not, right, is not some testament to your character. Okay, it is something that can be learned, right? So if you can't form a habit right now, if you have never been able to form a habit in the past, that is okay, right? It is not something that should come naturally to you, because it does not, right? We are animals at the end of the day, and short term gratification comes naturally to us. To form habits or to think long term takes a bit of effort. So it takes, so some of that effort comes in the form of learning what are the established strategies, tactics, techniques, tools, etc. we can use to form habits, right? Which is something I do a lot in my lazy fitness system, the coaching program that I take clients through, right? We talk a lot about habits. It's one of the three pillars. So there's diet, exercise, and habits. So I spend a lot of time on habits, at least say 5 to 6 hours on habits alone, right? It is something that can be learned. So even if you've never formed habits before, fear not, fret not, right? It is not supposed to come naturally to you. You're supposed to learn it. But for today, right, that will take a long time to kind of figure all of that out. But for today, just leave with the knowledge that you can, like, you're served best by avoiding thinking of willpower and motivation altogether. Because if your actions are dependent on willpower and motivation, then you are setting yourself up for failure, because willpower and motivation are fluctuating resources. And this is something that most 95% of coaches out there, experts out there, do not tell you this, because they themselves do not truly understand. So they also try to fix the willpower motivation artificially, right? They try to push you, and they try to kind of increase your willpower and motivation without realizing that it is a fundamentally unfixable problem, right? We do not try to fix willpower or motivation. What we do is we try to fix our habits, and that is a sustainable solution, because that is something that can stick, right? Regardless of how you feel, right? You will take action regardless of how you feel. So I hope this was useful, and I hope this will stop you from going in the wrong direction, trying to depend on willpower, motivation, pushing yourself, and going in the wrong direction and going around in circles, right? It's time to end that and just focus on building your skills in habit formation. You might still struggle there in the beginning, but once you master the art of habit formation, then it becomes so much easier to stay consistent and to form your discipline, to take consistent action for life, right? So let's move in that right direction, and I hope this video kind of helped change your perspective in that way and send you in the right direction at least. And there's a lot to habit formation. If you wish to kind of inquire more about the programs that I run, in which I coach folks how to how to lose weight in a hassle-free and stress-free manner, right? Using the pillars of diet, exercise, and habit formation. So, if you're curious about the habit formation part, if you want to go deeper into how exactly to use certain strategies, tactics, frameworks, and techniques to actually take consistent action for life, to actually form habits that stick for life, right, with the confidence that you know, like if you make a promise to yourself that I will do this, or I will start a weight loss plan, to have that confidence that I will follow through, I know how to follow through, right? If you want that sort of a confidence and you want to know more about the programs that I run, then feel free to DM me coach. That is my Instagram ID. So you can go to my Instagram, lazyfitness_in, assuming you don't follow me already, and you can go to my account, just DM me the word coach, and I will tell you more about the program, and we can probably schedule a free call or something like that, just to give you a more customized action plan that you can follow for forming habits, right? And even if not, I hope this was helpful, right? I hope it will help you think in new directions, and something that is more in a way that is more productive, and in a way that actually takes you closer to uh, your long term goals when it comes to fitness, and your long term goals beyond that in any area, right? Habits can help you. And I hope that this was useful. Good talking to you. And if you want to get in touch to hear more about this, then DM me the word coach at lazyfitness_in on Instagram. See you. Bye.